Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good friend, Ty Franck. He cheated on me last week with Breckenridge.
Yeah, I kind of miss Breck.
Yeah, somebody that actually knows what he's talking about. What'd you think of the episode last night or whenever you watched it?
Let me preface this by saying it's still a great show. It was beautifully written. It was beautifully directed. The acting is top notch. I loved the actor they got to play Riley. And this was the first episode I wasn't madly in love with. It just felt kind of pointless.
Yeah. Like we're two peas in a pod, baby. Because that's exactly, I thought I was going to be, I wasn't sure what you were going to think, but I felt the same way.
And this is my problem with dramatizing backstory, you know, and I'll get shit about this, I'm sure, in the comments, but I have this problem anytime somebody dramatizes backstory. And the reason that I feel like dramatizing backstory always feels a little pointless is because this episode, while it was beautifully acted, and I loved watching the actor playing Riley and Ellie together, I thought they had great chemistry together. I thought they were fantastic. Is we already know everything that's going to happen. And one of the key elements in storytelling, this is any kind of storytelling. This is TV, this is movies, this is telling a joke. One of the key elements in any of those things is tension. And the problem with dramatizing backstory is it doesn't have any tension. We know how it ends. We know everything that's going to happen. And so we know when Riley comes and gets Ellie and takes her out that night, we know that it ends with both of them getting bit and Riley dying. We know that. Ellie has already told us that in an earlier episode. And in fact, the best line of the episode, the one where Riley says, "Let's be all romantic and lose our minds together," Ellie already said that line like 4 episodes ago. She already told Joel that in that moment, Riley had said that to her. So the best line has already been used. All of the tension is sucked out of the episode because we already know everything that's going to happen. It's fun watching the two of them play Mortal Kombat. Like it's fun, but there's no tension in any of the moment other than when is the thing that we know is going to happen.
Was this a part of the game?
It's not part of the core game, but after the game had been out for about a year, I think, they dropped what a DLC is? Do you know what that is?
TLC? Yeah, I love TLC.
DLC.
Don't go chasing waterfalls, baby.
Yeah. Well, so in gaming, DLC stands for downloadable content. It's like you own the game and then they'll release like another chapter for the game that you can download, right? Mm-hmm. So they released this DLC called Left Behind. And this episode is based on the DLC Left Behind. So I've played the first Last of Us, probably 4 or 5 times. I love the game that much. I only ever played the DLC once. And the reason I only ever played it once is because I had the same reaction to that DLC that I had to this episode, which is it just kind of felt pointless. Like, I already knew everything that was going to happen. I'm sneaking around and killing zombies, so that's fun, in the moment. But story-wise, it just didn't do anything for me. And I had the same issue here. Now, having said all of that, I still enjoyed the episode because I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the two young actors together. I thought they were fantastic. I thought they had, as I said, fantastic chemistry. I just wish they had something to do that wasn't so rote,
Yeah.
I wish they had more to do.
Yeah. And I felt the same way. Again, it's like a show like this, it's so high quality that you still enjoy it, but it's not on the level of enjoyment that you did with the other episodes. And if I'm going to leave the main story with Joel shot or stabbed in the stomach and he's laying there, and I'm going to leave the main story, I want to know how that leaving is serving the current story that I'm watching. And then that micro story has to have its own tension, its own arc, its own thing that you're going through with it. Now, I enjoy what was her name? Sam Storm, or what was the actress's name? Riley, the one that
Storm Reed.
Storm Reed.
Wow, what a great name.
What a great name. What a great name. And I thought she was a great actress.
With a name like that, she should definitely have superpowers and be fighting crime.
And so them hanging out, I really enjoyed. I thought when she showed up and you see how important she is to Ellie and how much Ellie missed her and her longing for her, I was, really into that. I was, and then when they show up at the mall to me, I would have enjoyed it more if maybe there was a little bit less wonders in the mall. There's like, what, 5 wonders? Like, give me 3 wonders. You can have the same arc, have the same experience, because eventually it becomes aimless. It becomes wandering, and it becomes, and I get it, like they're building the story between the two. But like what I was really curious about is seeing Ellie discover that she's not changing. So for me, what I wanted from this episode is that Lady Hawk moment where you see Riley change and Ellie not change.
And that's the part they don't do.
So I would have spent the time getting to know them and in building my relationships to them and rooting for them and wanting them to work. And then they both get bit, and she gives her that speech about, and I guess that's the one thing that kind of ties it back to the initial story with Joel, is like, you never quit, you keep going. Yeah. And so I kind of understand that, but I wanted to see and experience Ellie realize and learn that she has something special about her. She's not changing, and then seeing the love of her life change and seeing that happen. That's the climactic moment that this whole story was missing. It was like we left really too soon and we got back to Joel.
I agree with you. And you know, the moment in that I wanted to see, that I thought would have really been powerful, is that moment when Riley realizes she's changing and Ellie isn't, and she feels betrayed.
Yeah.
Because Ellie she would feel that betrayal as well. I'm supposed to die too. I'm not dying. You see the betrayal on Riley's face. That would help me understand Ellie's anger, right? That anger she's carrying with her.
And that she's conflicted about her gift. Because one of the things that was interesting in this episode was Riley had a family. She experienced caring for other people and other people caring for her. Yeah. Ellie has only experienced that once, and that's with Riley. That's the only thing in her life where she's experienced love in that way, and then somebody loving her, caring for her. It's the closest. It's her everything. Yeah. And there's a reason why that she can be fucking cold and ruthless in certain things. Or like even when they saw that dead guy, you know, and they're like, "Oh, look, it's a dead guy," you know, and they sit there and look, and everything drops through because Ellie, like, there's no...
And they drink his fucking booze.
They drink his booze, you know? Like, that's the world she grew up in. That's the life she knows. Yeah. And so the one person she cared about, they both got bit, and she's like, let's finish this journey together. But she can't continue with her. She can't finish the journey with her. She continues, and she has this immunity. So there's an anger and conflictedness within her that's tied up in this immunity.
And the issue is, and I agree with everything you just said, the issue is that they didn't show it to us. That moment is the powerful moment in this story, and they cut out before that. And it's a very odd choice, and I'm not sure I understand why. Like, I would love to... So this episode was written by Neil Druckmann, the guy who was the creative director at Naughty Dog that made the game. He's clearly a really talented writer. Because, you know, Last of Us is one of the best written games I've ever played. And this was a well-written episode. He's a good writer. I would love to have a conversation with him about what his intention was there. Why spend so much time in the running around in the mall and then get out before the most powerful moment in the story that might have given it a reason to tie back to the Joel story. It just, I don't know, it just felt odd to me. It felt like an odd choice. And look, writing for TV is hard. So you're going to make choices that other people are going to see as mistakes, even if you didn't in the moment. Look, I've done it too. I'm not coming after this guy like he's bad at it or something. He's great at it. I personally found the choice odd and would love to have a conversation and see what the intention was.
Yeah, it's like watching the 92 Bulls and then coming afterwards and being like, dude, I can't believe, like, you know, during the playoffs, and it's like, you know, one game Jordan was just great, not supernatural great, you know. Right? It was like, you know,
he only scored 28. What did he have, an off night?
yeah. I mean, this is a top notch show, but this is you know, I mean, this is what you know. You sit back and you kind of think about it. This is the fun of it, to think about why wasn't that moment there. One way that it was done well was the two brothers in Kansas City. And you get to know them and you connect with them and you see their full arc, and you have, even though it's tragic and it has that emotional, you know, power payoff in the end, you have a bit of closure as you move on beyond that. And one of the things that I've been curious about since I've started watching this is when I met Ellie and realizing that she has this immunity, I was so curious about what was that experience like? Did she wake up? Like she got bit, she woke up the next day. What was that experience? Like how long did it take her to realize, I'm not going to change? Because and that's such an interesting aspect of her, and whatever happened, she's carrying it with her now. So if you're going to go back and do a flashback and you're going to show this important relationship that's informed so much of who she is, you might as well show the ending, like to pay it off. You might as well show how that goes forward.
And this is a tricky thing in adaptation. We had a lot of conversations about this when we were adapting The Expanse with Noreen and the other writers. The trap of being too faithful to the source material. And I feel like because Left Behind is part of the source material, they felt like they had to do it. And I think if I was in that writer's room, I would have been arguing against it, that we're not going to learn anything new doing this. And I definitely would have argued against cutting out before we get to see the transformation and Ellie's surprise and Riley's feeling of betrayal and all of that stuff, because I really feel like that was the juice of this moment.
Was this like shot from the DLC? Is that what you call it?
No. But it's definitely the story from the DLC.
Okay.
With Ellie and Riley going into the mall and hanging out, and then zombies show up. Now keep in mind, in the DLC, most of the DLC is built around combat because, of course, it's a game. So it's not just one clicker that shows up or one infected that shows up at the end and bites both of them. It's a bunch of infected that show up, and they have to fight all of them. So part of what the DLC does differently. So in the show, we see the bonding between Ellie and Riley in the activities they're doing when they go to like the haunted house store, and when they play Mortal Kombat together, and all of those things are sort of the bonding moments between the two of them. In the game, the bonding moments are them cooperating to defeat the infected, because there's the two of them are trapped in this big store,
and there's a bunch of zombies and
there's a bunch of infected, and the two of them have to work together to beat them. And that's where you really get that bonding is from working together to defeat all the guys. I thought this version worked fine. I don't think they needed the big zombie battle.
Yeah.
I feel like in both cases, the game version and the TV version both had the same effect on me in that I didn't feel like I learned anything new. I felt like I was watching them dramatize something where I already knew every detail of it from the stories that we'd already been told.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's important to point out that I do not feel like my opinion is like the opinion and everybody has to agree with me. Some people are going to love this episode, and those people are not wrong to love it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with loving stuff. I'm just explaining why I personally don't engage with this kind of story.
And I'm going to be really curious to hear the comments or hear people listening to this, the listeners, of what they thought about it. And, so we start out with Joel, and they found shelter, and he's bleeding to death, and he's telling he has that White Fang moment. I'm a sucker for that White Fang moment. When you remember in the book White Fang, when he's like throwing the rocks at the dog, he's like, get away from me.
Get away from me.
Yeah, because he can't. But I've seen it in other movies, that mechanism be used since then. And it's where somebody that you really care about, but for whatever reason, you have to push them away because it's for their own good, and you have to sacrifice the way they think about you. And and a lot of times it's with animals. Anyway, I love that moment. I love it when he's like, go, and he ends up pushing her up against the wall. He's like, get the fuck out of here. And she goes up against the wall, and then we go into this flashback. And that's why when we left this moment, because this, it's an urgent moment, everything. When we left this moment, now we're starting and building another story. I kept trying to connect how it was tying into the thing that we were watching.
And there, you pointed out the connection, which is the never give up, never surrender sort of speech.
No retreat.
I guess that is, the connection.
What movie is that from? No retreat, no surrender.
Never give up, never surrender. That is Galaxy Quest.
And then there's a deeper cut for that. Do you know it, Joseph? No Retreat, No Surrender.
Why am I thinking Red Dawn? But
No.
I can't.
This is one of Van Damme's very early.
Oh, are you talking about his karate, the karate movie?
Yeah.
With like the Bruce Lee influence.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the movie. It was horrible,
Yeah.
but it's so great.
Oh
He's
my
like,
God, it was so good. It was horrible good.
Yeah.
Did you ever see this movie, Ty, where Bruce Lee like comes back like in this guy's dreams and teaches him karate? Did you ever see?
You know what? I have seen that movie.
I think it's called No Retreat, No Surrender. Is it called?
I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That movie's so good. And he's at a party and he gets in a fight with a karate guy, and then he's like, I gotta learn karate. It's great. And then Jean-Claude Van Damme comes to his gym and he like crushes his sensei's hand. Man, the 80s, dude. The 80s dojo culture. What were we talking about before we said that?
Oh, I was just saying, like, that sort of, I guess, is the connection. Yeah, as you said, is, the don't give up, you got to fight for every moment kind of speech that Riley gives. Which, I mean, that's fine if that's the connection between the two. It didn't feel like enough to justify the amount of screen time it got.
Yeah, it's a long way around the barn to make that one point.
To make that point, and really, so. That's fine. Not every show is going to hit a 10 out of 10 on every episode.
Yeah.
It's just not every, and very few shows even get close to that. And I think Last of Us is definitely getting close to that. The only frustration for me is, as somebody who knows the story, because I've played the game multiple times, the next thing that happens after she patches Joel up in the game, the next segment of the game after when Joel is patched up, but he's still immobile and Ellie has to take care of him, is my favorite section of the game. And the fact that we burned an episode on this DLC and now are only going to have one episode to spend on my favorite part of the game kind of is annoying to me. I wanted 2 episodes for that part. I wanted it to get 2 episodes.
Wait, so how many? Is there only one episode left?
There's 2. There's 2 episodes left. But the last episode has to be at the Firefly place.
At the Firefly.
Where they're taking Ellie. So the next episode hopefully is the section of the game that I'm talking about, and I really wish they had given it 2 episodes because I love it so much.
Ty, did you see My Best Friend in the Whole World this episode?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to bring it up, but I was waiting for you. I was very happy, and he didn't get much screen time, unfortunately. But I was super happy to see Terry Chen, our friend, and definitely a top 5 nominee for greatest guy in the world.
Yeah,
Terry.
Yeah.
There's literally nobody who has worked with Terry who doesn't think he's the best guy ever.
Yeah. Not only, like I say in the show, he's my best friend, but like I really like became friends with him during the show. Like I love Terry. He's a great guy. But for many reasons, first of all, like, Terry's a good friend and I'm excited to see him, but also he has such a strong character and integrity that just irradiates from him, that it was an interesting choice, and I like the choice they made of having him kind of be the face of Fedra within this episode, because you get a whole nother experience of Fedra that I find interesting, because it's not like V, like the 1980s show V, where it's like, those are the bad guys and those are the good guys. The bad guys have lizard faces and they eat Tweety birds out of cages, right? But this is like, everybody is trying to do the best that they could do in these desperate, crazy fucking times. And in some ways, and Terry makes this point, his character makes this point, is like, listen, we're the only thing holding this shit together. And when you're in chaos land, you're going to have to hammer down. I mean, even with the faction of the Fireflies in Kansas City, were they Fireflies or were they a different faction?
No, that wasn't the people who took over in Kansas City, at least in the show, as far as I could tell, were not Fireflies.
Okay, so that was like a different faction of that thing.
Well, it's not even really. It doesn't even look like it was actually a faction. It was just a bunch of people who got tired of Fedra and killed all the Fedra people and ran them out of town.
Yeah, but like I'm seeing their regime, and I'm like, I don't know if living under their regime's much better than it doesn't look much different than Fedra, So, and then if you're like, well, then you live out in the wilderness and you see how those guys get treated, and you're like, I don't know if that's any better than so it's a land of chaos, and there isn't like the right choice there. It's besides where his brother lives. I'm like, there I want to go there. That's where I would live. So, but I like, it made it more interesting. And also from seeing a different side of Fedra, you seeing this guy and he's like, look, if you want to, it reminds me of the Timothy Zahn books that he wrote about Thrawn, like Thrawn Risings, whatever. You read those books and it's from the Imperial's perspective and you read it and it makes Star Wars more interesting to me because now you see what's motivating. They're not evil people. They're mostly terrible people. And they care about power and rising through the ranks and all these things, but you have a better understanding of them and what's motivating them. It makes it more complex and interesting for me. So
yeah, and Terry's an interesting choice to cast there, because Terry naturally has a warmth, and so when he's on screen with Ellie, you feel his warmth. You feel that he really genuinely cares about her, and he genuinely wants her to do well. And wants her to have a good life. And because it's Terry, because he's just got that naturally as an actor, it just radiates off the screen. And so you can't hate him. You can be, he's Fedra, he's evil. You can't hate that guy.
Yeah, it's not like a Nazi that's standing, it's...
Yeah, he's not like talking to her and then going out in the yard and shooting some Jews.
Yeah.
He's like genuinely trying to be a good guy. And so and because of that, when Ellie finds the bombs, and she's like, are you going to use these to blow up soldiers?
Right.
She's thinking about Terry's character. She's thinking about people that she likes that are the targets of these attacks.
Right.
And it makes it much more conflicted. It's not just like they're obviously the bad guys, so we have to blow them up.
Yeah.
It's well done.
That's an excellent point, because if you see those grenades and you didn't have that scene where he's almost like a principal, like a caring principal at a school, and he's like, you got so much potential and I believe in you. And then you see those bombs, those that she made, those handmade grenades. And you're like, oh, I know some of the people on the other end of those grenades now. And it's not as, and if it didn't have that moment and it was like what we know of Fedra, then you'd be like, yeah, good. Join the Fireflies. Fuck those guys,
Yeah, exactly. If they were blatantly just Nazis, fuck those guys. Let's blow them up. But they're not. It's like you said, it is the land of chaos. Everybody's trying to figure out how to survive it. And everybody's got a different story on how to survive it, but they all seem to be equally bad.
When you're in a place where absolute chaos rules the day and people are hungry and starving, it's hard to govern those people. And
Yeah, for sure. I was actually having this conversation with somebody else recently. In the very first episode, we see Fedra hanging people for the offense of sneaking outside the wall, right? That's a hanging offense. Or trying to sneak in through the wall is a hanging offense. And we're talking about how that seems so over the top. And I'm like, you know what? In this world, it isn't. Because if you're infected, it can take up to 2 days for you to change. If you sneak out and then sneak back in, you could be bringing the infection in with you. They need to so strongly discourage people going out and risking potential infection and coming back in.
Yeah.
That's why they do that. And so it seems draconian. It seems completely over the top.
Right.
But in the context of that world, you get it. I get why they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Tommy's little village over there. When they ran into that couple out in the woods, and they're like, "Don't go that way. There's nothing but death." And they see dead bodies that are mutilated all around. And they go in there. It's the most peaceful place in this world, this series. It's the most peaceful place. And they're like, "Look, we gotta fucking do it, because if we don't, they're gonna come in. So we got to create this thing." So desperate times calls for desperate measures.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I do not love the idea of a fascist military regime running things. Mm-hmm. Like, I do not love that idea. I would be hard pressed to agree with the federal worldview. Mm-hmm. At the same time, like you said, desperate times call for desperate measures, and we're starting to see the things that has been replaced with.
Yeah,
and most of them are bad. Like Kansas City, yay, we ran Fedra out, and now we all follow this crazy woman who will sacrifice literally every person's life to get revenge for her brother.
Or vengeance.
Yeah. Like, I don't think we upgraded when we ran Fedra out and put this woman in charge.
Yeah.
The only one we've seen that seems functional is, as you point out, the community of Jackson, which is that one out in the middle of nowhere. But that only works because it's so isolated.
Yeah. But even the guy that stabbed him, those guys, like they just show up. They're straight up robbing and pillaging. Like they're straight.
Well,
like
what else are you going to do?
Yeah. What else are you going to do? Like they're like, we are going to take what you have and we're going to kill you to do it. And so that's not, there's not a lot of, and I think that's the smart thing about this show. And I guess the smart thing about the game is there is no great alternatives. There isn't the lizard alien invasion from V and then the good humans that are just trying to survive. It's like, no, we're all trying to survive. We're all trying to think. And I tell you what, if I was in the QZ and my family was in that QZ and people were sneaking out to go steal for money or for gain and to come back and putting everybody in danger, I'm hanging you outside the wall. I'm making it like you're going to be made an example of.
Yeah, because from your perspective, that person is endangering your family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For their own greed, they're willing to put your children at risk so that they can get whatever they're trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you get it. When you see it, when you paint it that way, it makes sense.
Now, I do love that she takes her to a mall.
It's such an 80s thing.
Is it an 80s? Because, we had that.
It feels very, well, I guess 80s and 90s.
90s, yeah. Because we had, you remember Mallrats, and that'd be another good top 5 is like mall movies, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High or whatever those mall movies. But it is like the hallowed grounds of the teenage experience, at least when I was growing up. Like that's because they could
not
drop
anymore,
you off.
But it was then,
yeah. Now that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, or Joseph, you have daughters. Is that what kids do these days? They go hang out at the mall like we used to. Like we used to get dropped off at the mall.
Nope, not at all.
No?
Nope, not like in the 90s. Yeah.
I don't even know the last time I've been to a mall. I don't even know where a mall is where I live now. But so we used to like you get dropped off, you go watch a movie, then you meet your friends there, you go to the food court, you hang out. Did you do that in your time when you were growing up? When you were
Yeah, I think everybody did, because the mall was where the movie theater was, and I was such a movie fan.
Yeah.
So
I was there for the theater. And then
you go to the movies, and then at least in the later 80s, that's when video arcades started showing up, like the one that they show in this episode. So you'd go to the movies, you'd go to the food court and get, and the nice thing about the food court is nobody had to agree on what food they wanted because everybody could get whatever they wanted, right? Which was great. And then you'd go to the arcade and you'd play, video games for a couple hours with whatever money you had left.
Yeah.
So it was, they had all of that stuff, and they're definitely showing that side of it. Now, Mortal Kombat 2 was I think that was a 90s game. So this was more of a sort of 90s mall feel.
Yeah. And I think, so I loved the romanticizing the mall. And then her knowing that Ellie would love this because Ellie is interested in the world before, what the world was like before, and she also knows that Ellie would like the video games and that kind of thing. So the knowledge of Ellie, like it was a sweetness about it. Like she was like, I'm going to show you something that I know you're going to love because I know you, and these things are tailor made for you. And there was something really sweet about that, and I thought they really captured the excitement and how romantic the arcade is. And I still to this day, like, there's a bowling alley like close to me, and they have like a proper arcade, and I take my kids there, and it's still, man, like it like my kids just like we're going to the arcade, and it's like just lights up, man, and they go in there, and it's like just endless excitement, and it's such a good time. So I really enjoyed that, like them exploring the mall.
Again, I mean that's the beauty of this show. Even when they're doing episodes that I'm not in love with, they're still making a beautiful TV show. I mean, even these moments that you're talking about are beautifully shot, and the performances are fantastic. And Ellie, as a character, is so lovable. Like when she sees the arcade and she says, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." You can't help but just fall in love with this kid, right? Like you're just like, I just want this kid to be okay. I just want her to be protected and safe.
And it made sense to me that she understood what an arcade was in the Games Wars, because she's always reading those comic books and things like that. And there, she has
a Mortal Kombat poster on her wall in her bedroom. Yeah.
So that means that she's read the books, like like video games used to have like books. I don't know if they do that now, but used to, like, I remember in my Nintendo days, you would get like books and they would tell you like codes and certain things you could read about different games.
Nintendo Power Magazine, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I first saw the Power Glove, and then like you had to have those certain things in there. What I also thought was really interesting is that when they walk past a Victoria's Secret, and I guess like when it's the end of the world and you're just striving to survive, things like that don't really hold much meaning. Like, those type of things just kind of go by the wayside,
I feel like there's at least one guy who would have went and raided that store. One creepy dude would have all of that shit in his house. Yeah. In the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree. And there's
because when they looted the mall, they stole all the shit that the functional stuff. They stole the tennis shoes and stuff like that, but they didn't steal thongs and things like that.
Well, and as Ellie points out, they didn't steal the soap, which, you know what? I think I would have stolen some soap.
I would have got some soap. Yeah.
I would have. Yeah, soap is really useful in the apocalypse. But there's a beautiful moment in the game, which they sort of use as part of the inspiration for this episode, where it's in the regular game, not the Left Behind DLC, but where Joel and Ellie are going through this little, like, I think it's a diner, and there's a video game arcade machine against the wall, and Ellie goes over and starts playing with it, and she goes, "Man, I wish this worked." And you can see like she's just in love with the idea that there used to be video game machines, and she just so desperately wants to have experience playing one. And it's just a brief moment in the game, but I love that they expand that moment into this moment where she actually does get to play one. I think it's really cool.
And then they have their fight at the end when there's a great buildup of their attraction. There's the moment of her falling on the stairs, and then they're close to each other. And, we all remember those moments when you have a little crush and you're at the mall, and like every time you touch each other, or like every time you're close, it's like electrified, but you did.
Oh yeah. When you're sitting in the movie theater and your knees touch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's basically sex when you're 13.
That wasn't my knee tie. but then there's that insecurity. There's that insecurity of like, if I move too soon, what if I'm wrong? And so like, and that just makes it that much more powerful. Like it's like a chemical fucking high that you get from it. It's like a drug. It's very similar to a drug. Yeah. And Bella Ramsey did such a great job of playing those moments of like being vulnerable, and then being like, all right, you're touching me. Like, when they were getting their pictures taken, and she had her arms around her, and you could tell she loved the way that felt, but she was like, all right, guy, you get away from, you're touching me, like da da da. Or even when they're looking at the Victoria's Secret, and Riley says to her, I was trying to picture you in those things, and kind of laughs at her. And she's like, shut the fuck up. Like, she's pissed off about it. But then you see her look at her reflection, in the mirror, and she's like
fixing her hair.
Yeah. Am I pretty enough for her?
Am I pretty enough?
Yep. And that's very honest to teenagedom. And those moments really beautiful. And then they work up to the moment where they kiss.
Yeah. And all of that stuff is really well done. Like I have no complaints about the writing of these scenes or the performance. Again, the actor who's only in this one episode as Storm Reed, is that right? She's great. I don't know if I've seen her in other things, but I hope to see her in more stuff. I thought she was really good. And Bella Ramsey has so much charisma that I feel like it would be hard to share the screen with her and not just sort of get washed out. And so obviously Pedro Pascal has incredible on-screen presence, and so Joel is doing fine. But I was really impressed by how well this young actor held her ground with this incredibly charismatic Bella Ramsey. She definitely drew as much screen attention as Bella does, which that's tough to do. I'm very impressed.
And then she tells her the truth that she's leaving, And at this point, you can understand how pissed off Ellie gets because, like what we said before, she's never had a family. She's never had anybody that she's ever felt like this about. And then also, you know, not only does she feel this way about this person, it's also another layer of vulnerability because, you know, she put herself out there with her, you know, and then when they kissed, I like that moment of kissing, and then she's like, I'm sorry. And then she's like, why? Because when she kisses, almost like, is she going to reject me?
Yeah.
For this thing? And she says, I'm sorry. And then she's like, why? And then it's like her eyes light up and it's like, holy shit, we feel the same way about each other. And how many nights, you know, how many months, how much time is being spent of wondering if she feels the same way, or is this just, I'm just imagining this, you know?
Yeah. And the I'm sorry is the escape hatch, right? Like you're offering the other person a way to get out of it that it won't be awkward or less awkward. Say, oh, I'm sorry. And the other person goes, oh, no, don't worry about it. Then you know, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. Like, and it doesn't have to get super weird. But the other thing is, and I thought this was smart writing too, if you sort of think about the timelines, Riley is at least a year and a half and maybe 2 years older than Ellie is. Because she's about to turn 17. Ellie's 15. So she's got a little more age on her, and the difference between 15 and 17 in terms of your naivety about dating and romance and all of that stuff is huge. That gap is gigantic. Like I was at 15, I was a moron. At 18, I was like slightly less of a moron, but knew quite a bit more about like how to act around girls and that kind of stuff. So having Ellie be the naive one, the one who's a little scared, having Riley be a little more sure of herself and confident in her romantic life made complete sense to me because of the gap in their ages.
Mm-hmm. And then in good writing, every time a character gets what she wants, you know, you finally, you kiss, you connect, you tell her not to leave. She's like, okay, I'm not going to leave. And you have this resolved thing. The one person in your life that you care, that is your everything, your family, the person that you love, your romantic partner, but also your first romantic, the first kiss, the first intimate relationship, everything.
And your best friend.
And your best friend.
Yep.
And you get a moment. It's Lady Hawk, you know, you get that moment with Michelle Pfeiffer before she turns into a hawk. You know, and it's like that one little glimpse of this what this could be, this happiness, and you forget about the fallen world. You forget about the chaos and the things that are happening, and you're in the mall, this fucking mall, this like paradise, this heaven. I think there was even a song, was there a Pesh Mode song or something just like Heaven in there? I think it was like, I heard it somewhere in there. Anyway, that's where they were. And I'd like to go and look at the music because, like, I think I heard Pearl Jam. I think I heard.
So the merry-go-round song is a Cure song. I was like, I want to go to the mall where the merry-go-round song is the Cure.
All right, maybe I'm confused. So what was the song? The Cure song?
I believe the merry-go-round song was the Friday I'm in Love.
Yeah,
by the Cure.
Was that it?
Yeah, I think it was.
So she has this amazing moment in this place where they're like protected from the outside world. It's their magical place. And then they get bit by zombies. And then they get bit by fucking zombies. This pure happiness just gets invaded by this ugly fucking zombie. I mean, this guy was like, although he did have good teeth, which was weird to me. But
if your main attack is biting people, you're going to take care of those choppers.
Yeah, you got to take care.
And he's in a mall. He probably found a toothbrush, some toothpaste.
And you know, and then they both get bitten. And this is where I'm like, okay, now I'm interested to see how the change happens and how the process of her realizing her gift. And then it cuts back to Joel. Yeah. It gets back to that. And so I was a little bit bummed out that it's like, okay, if I'm going to invest in this character and invest in these stories and you're taking me away from the main storyline, I want to see the other end of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is this episode will get compared to episode 3, I think, because episode 3 is also where you step away from the Joel and Ellie storyline for an entire episode. And I loved episode 3. because episode 3 wasn't about things I already knew about. It was a brand new story, and it had a resolution. Like, it resolved. And that's the problem with this episode is it's beautifully told, and it's beautiful to look at, and it's beautifully acted. All of those things are beautiful, and it just doesn't have a resolution. It doesn't have a story. It just kind of, it felt like here's 40 minutes of here's some stuff that happened, and then cut back to the main story. So it did not have the impact that episode 3 had for me.
Is sewing up Joel the answer to his wound?
Well, so in the game, they don't actually show that. So what the game does, and I was just talking to Joseph about this before you came on. There's a big time passage for Joel to heal up, and the way they dramatize it in the game is Joel gets injured in its fall, so the leaves are changing, and that's when he gets injured. Then we cut away, and when we come back, the ground is covered in snow. So you go from fall to winter in this one cut. And so that shows you that a bunch of time has passed. And we see that Joel's wound has been sewn up with this very ugly suture. It's like a really badly sutured wound. And Ellie is out trying to get food and medicine for him. And one of the things that she's trying to get is antibiotics, which you would need, because if you get a stomach wound like that, there's inevitably a horrific infection that comes with that. Mm-hmm. So when we come back to Ellie and the snow is covering the ground and Joel's been sewn up and she's trying to get antibiotics and food, we sort of understand the story that has happened, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she's sewn him up. She's been trying to keep him fed. She's been trying to keep him pumped full of antibiotics so he doesn't die of a infection. Like, we sort of get it. So that's the next part of the story. So that I'm assuming that's what they'll do next episode. And by the way, for people who are listening to this, I never watched the next time on section. I never watched that. I don't want to know. I would much rather leave that a mystery and speculate on it and then find out when I watch the episode than watch a trailer for the next episode.
All right. That concludes this episode. Please like and subscribe and ring that little bell for us, please. Every time you ring that bell, an angel gets its wings.
Every time you guys do that, Joseph is able to feed one of his daughters actual food instead of a shoe, which is, we need to get his daughters off that shoe-only diet.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.